Taquinogzien, Bahanamak, Tawanoak, Nia, Puizo Banam. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. In English, my name is Amyrose Foll. There's a few points actually I really want to speak about today regarding seed rematriation and the pathways, the vital pathways the garden can take us down to really connect with our culture, teach our culture to the wider audience of the United States or Canada, as the case might be. My family's originally from Canada, so the importance of growing our own traditional foods for ourselves is really vital. First, regarding our role in the future of this nation and the environmental crisis that we are experiencing right now. I say "our" because we each have a role to play in this. You get to choose how you define your own role. My people are fundamentally different in their approach to problems than the typical settler mindset of "I have rights" versus "I have a duty." We're brought up with the notion that we have obligation to everyone around us for their concern, or that concerns their well-being. And because of this, I have a really hard time with the current system built to profit off of our exploitation. We live in a society where kind of the forest has no value until it is cut down. And as Native people, we live in this weird liminal space between keeping our culture and being successful in the society at large or in modern life. The focus of my work is basically food justice. It's led me down some paths I'm honored to walk. Leading our organization with our organization's future with Indigenous values of collectivism and collaboration will lead us out of this crisis. Whether it's the climate crisis or the pandemic or fundamentally shifting our food systems and our food shed, that's where my heart is. An unimpeachable truth that is in our DNA as Indigenous people is we have the power to transform these unjust systems if we work together until balance is restored. Traditional foodways are the medicine we need to heal ourselves and the community as a whole. There's something perverse about folks starving in front of a grocery store while half of the produce is getting thrown away because it went bad before anyone could buy it. And I really think we need to get out the guillotines because there's something fundamentally wrong with that system. They need to go away. One of the most important things about food justice and growing for ourselves, and one of the most important things I've done personally, is failed. I failed because I had this lone wolf mentality. I'm going to do it all myself because I don't like to ask for help. And I learned that what's sustaining really needs to be, or what's sustaining and healthy needs to be co-created, community-driven. That can really ground us, feed us, and sustain us long-term. I'm grateful for these connections that I've made. You'll get to hear from one of them in a second, and I can't wait for that. The connections I've made amongst the Virginia tribal members here and in the Indigenous diaspora living in the state of Virginia, my team and I are laying the foundation with some of those tribal members from the Rappahannock and the Monacan to take back their sacred seeds and revive the knowledge of culture that has been lost in the absence of the intergenerational gardens. Sadly, loss of language, medicine, emotional, and sensory impoverishment are the unfortunate symptoms of the forced acculturation of Virginia's Indigenous population. And they've been dealing with that for over 400 years. Recently, I had the opportunity to walk the Monacan burial grounds with tribal members and talk out a plan to really make it an opportunity to reimagine what they consider food. I say this because we get hung up on what our colonizers define as the standard in food, and it doesn't need to be that way. One of the most exciting things to me was their willingness to explore and catalog the food resources that they have all around them in their forest lands there. That is going to be absolutely outstanding for the people of Central Virginia, well, the Indigenous people of Central Virginia. Yeah, so we're all familiar with Three Sisters, and it's great. It's very valuable, but it's really played out. And there's so much more to offer, or we have so much more to offer as Indigenous people. For me personally, what really gets me going is the satisfaction of teaching my children and others to forage. And I encourage you, if you haven't in the past, to maybe take that up. So important. We separate and cultivate, or we actually separate out wild edibles here and cultivate things like goosefoot, sunchokes that you otherwise would find growing in the wild. So I realize not everyone gets to do that as a child. What I learned, what we can all do is come together to create a food system that meets those needs of culturally appropriate food. And together we can kind of feed our culture by learning these new things from each other and then teaching them to as many people as we can. I was lucky. I grew up that way. I was in the woods constantly from the time I could walk. Not everyone has that opportunity, but we can all at least create small scale projects that can be replicated and shared and scaled. They can all center around earth care, people care, resource share. That really needs to be the guiding ethics that are going to move us forward and promote our standing as a people in food culture, in saving our culture before it's gone, because it's been taken from us in many situations, especially here on the East Coast. We were just talking about that a few minutes ago before we went live here. And it's so important to kind of stop that, because it's been forced upon us. We've had centuries of this. And if we don't act now, our kids, my kids, your kids, they won't have anything to call their own. So yeah, we need to take a deep assessment of place and create a people's plan to pass the baton for those kids. The ancestral knowledge, we have to map out that ancestral knowledge, map out our community problems, our community needs, available resources that we have to solve these things. We can solve problems in food and environmental injustice and inequality. We can do it for ourselves. We can't let anybody else or wait around for anybody else to do it for us. We need to do it ourselves, and we need to do it now. We need to recruit as many people as possible. It's so important. We also need to be comfortable with the thought that we may need to completely re-gear our system. Don't fear systemic destruction. I know people don't like change. I don't like change either. But just like a forest fire burning down the forest, it can be scary and it can be terrifying, but it can also renew and cause us to grow back, not to what was, but to what should be. One of the things that I treasure most in my work is teaching the ethnobotany to children and watching them explore and be afraid of the things that I'm giving them to eat, and then seeing them correctly identifying these things. It's really useful for teaching language, and I hope to be able to do it with the tribes I'm working with here. I want to use this as a tool to make things better for everyone around me, because this area was contacted and exploited by settlers hundreds of years before the West. It's much more has been lost here, stolen, captured, cataloged in university anthropology departments and museums. I learned actually by engaging the University of Maryland anthropology department. It doesn't sit right with me that all this stuff has been taken by all of these people and we don't have access to it or dominion over it. It's what started out as a conversation between the Department of Natural Resources and the Ag Department of the University of Maryland, ended up turning into a really beautiful conversation regarding seed rematriation. And we were able to come to an agreement and receive some of those seeds back that we are hopefully going to be putting into gardens here in on tribal lands here in Virginia. It's going to be really great, and I can't wait to do that. So I encourage you, if you have the ability to, reach out to your local universities, reach out to the United States Department of Agriculture. We've already been getting some great responses back and receiving some of these seeds in the mail. And it is so important for us to get those, keep them, propagate them, as many as you can, get them to any tribal members you can, because otherwise they're going to end up being lost forever. And it doesn't sit right with me that many of the East Coast have become so culturally adrift. I don't want that. I don't want that to be a thing. And I don't belong here, but this is my new home, and I will do anything that I can to help them kind of escape that pan-Indian cliches of, calling all cornfields milpos. Learn your own language, learn what it is. It's so important to have your own thing. Yeah, so there's a whole host of circumstances for these that are lamentable. But one thing I know is true is that we have the power to change it. We must change it. And I believe that starting with food is key. And it makes me sad because when you think of culture, say Italian or Chinese culture, what's the first thing you think about? Or what's the first thing that comes to mind? For me, it's food. I don't know whether that says more about my inner fat kid, but I love food. Anyways, I think about these things and I'm really enraged that appropriation and destruction of our way of life has made tomatoes the star for Italian cuisine, not necessarily for our people. Hell, half of what I think about as popular foods would not exist if it were not for our people. And I'm looking at you, French fried potatoes or pizza, because you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for native cultivars. Those foods wouldn't exist. So anyways, it's a tough topic to put in such a tiny little time slot, and there's a lot of barriers put up for us in reclamation of foodways, and people being cut off from traditional subsistence lands, damage from resource extractions, climate change, political and legal regulations. We actually don't even have access to a lot of our traditional lands and resources, which is really kind of wrong as well also. And I hope that we can find a way to fix these things for ourselves. We don't have to accept that what government and corporations tell us what we must want and what we must have, or how we should live or behave. We have to change those dynamics of dependence in that cycle and create our own cache of resources. So yeah, I'm talking a lot. I'll give you guys opportunity for questions shortly here, because we do have someone really great coming on next. What else? Yeah, there's so much important stuff. We need to stop feeding the industrial cycle of fat, sick, dependent people spending money on garbage food, on healthcare. If we create our own food systems and reclaim those native foodways, it could do a lot towards our health, emotionally and physically. So yeah, in the past, we made sure that everyone made it through. Somewhere along the way, we forgot that when everyone is provided for and healthy and fed, that we all benefit from this, from the collective community's strength. It doesn't fit the capitalist agenda, and so it was whitewashed out of us in a way. In so many communities, we need to remember who we are. And that's part of the reason that I run a free farm. One of the most important elements to me is the free seed bank. We start thousands of plants, mostly native cultivars, and we provide community organizations and individuals with plants, seeds to be able to provide their own food for themselves and grow their own food. No one from the outside can do this for us. We need to do it ourselves. So that's what we do. Yeah, so, and it can be replicated anywhere. A free farm is not a very difficult thing to do, and you can do it on a very small piece of land. You could grow tons of food on a tiny little piece of land. So you don't have to be resource rich to be able to affect these things. And I am here to answer questions. I'm gonna, I think my information was on the slide, and you guys can reach out to me whenever you would like, and I could help you do this. I would be happy to help you. And also, if there's any questions about, so I'm sorry, I started out and I went right into things. I run a free farm. I run the Virginia Free Farm, and we provide about 550 people around the state of Virginia and Washington, D.C. with free food. We work with people getting out of the Department of Corrections. We work with people in rehab. We work with individual families and a couple of the tribes here now. So if you have any questions for me about doing that, I would be very happy to do that. You can email me, you can inbox me. If you want to start your own, I would be more than happy to support you in doing so. So are there any questions? If not, we can move on to, Water Protector Arts, Vanessa Bolin from the Richmond Indigenous Society. Okay, so I see all right, no questions right now. I don't know whether we have anyone in between us, but thank you so much for letting me ramble. Winnie, winnie, adio.